Welcome to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast. I am your host, Erika del Pozo, occupational therapist, certified health coach, CEO and founder of Joy Energy Time, Miami girl, and pineapple lover. In this podcast, we provide the resources on how to deal with stress, burnout, and anxiety, how to get energized, find true satisfaction and alignment in your life, and more. You will learn how to slay your burnout beast and go from burnt out to a lit up life. Let's do this. Hi, and welcome to episode 1 of the Burnout to Lit Up podcast. This is my first podcast, and I'm very excited to dive in and share more about myself, what you can expect from this podcast, and if this podcast is right for you. I want to start off by saying that the reason why I decided to make a podcast is because I knew I would like this way more than video because you can't see my face. But really, I decided that I want to reach and inspire an audience through this platform to really dig deep, explore meaningful topics, and be your ultimate resource for everything stress and burnout related. In my exploration of stress and burnout, I realized that there are two ends to the spectrum. On one end, you find the ugly and chaotic stress and burnout, but then on the other end, you find self-care, happiness, more energy, more time to do the things that are meaningful to you. My mission as an educator and occupational therapist is to take you from one end of the spectrum to the other. We will explore each end and everything along the way. We must really take meaningful and purposeful action to carve out a beautiful life and learn that although we may never be able to fully eliminate stress from our lives, because let's face it, we deal with stress every day, we can learn how to effectively deal with it backed up by evidence-based practices. Because for me, it's just simply not enough to let my life go by. It's not enough to not be sad and just be neutral. And if you're here, I really hope that's the same case for you. Because the absence of sadness doesn't mean you're happy. We must actively go and pursue happiness. That leads me to believe that taking action to live a more joyful, energized, organized life, or whatever that means for you, it means that we take action and we make the time for the things that really matter, and we make an effort instead of just letting our lives go by, instead of just letting stress and burnout take over. So back about almost 10 years ago, wow, man, time really flies. What year is it? 2018. So yes, 10 years ago, I was being treated by a psychologist because at the time I was diagnosed with an eating disorder. And I remember telling my therapist, I never want to be normal, to which she replied, you're never going to be normal. And I think what she was trying to tell me was that, I think she was trying to console me. And my way of exerting control was in a very unhealthy and damaging way. It was through an eating disorder. And so many years later, now that I look back at that conversation, I think about what I was trying to convey was my need to be different, to be special. And I was ultimately on my way to becoming a professional dancer back then, but I totally lost sight of what was important. And thus I was in this eating disorder that was really damaging for me physically and mentally. Now that I think about it now, I mean, I'm still not normal. Just ask my husband or my friends. But now I get where I was going with that so long ago. And you know what? Who is normal? Who wants to be normal? We have the potential to be extraordinary. We have the potential to be our most lit up versions of ourselves. So we all deserve to break our old habits and to step into our true selves and give ourselves permission to do so. So in this episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, and so you know where I'm coming from and how I can serve you. So let's take it way back to 1988. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. I am the daughter of 2 Cuban immigrants. I speak Spanglish, which is a combination of English and Spanish. My Spanish isn't the best, never was. And when I was in high school, I was really frustrated because everyone spoke Spanish and I wanted to catch up because in my house, my parents mainly spoke English to me and to each other. So in high school, I started to listen to Shakira and translate all her songs to English because I wanted to go through the process of understanding grammar and expanding my Spanish vocabulary. And I learned a lot of Spanish that way. I took AP Spanish in my senior year of high school and I passed it. Fun fact, I have met Shakira, so that was pretty awesome. I met her a few years ago. And another just little random fact, one of my favorite role models of all time is Aly Raisman, the Olympic gold medalist. I actually met her too, not that long ago. So it's been great meeting my favorite celebrities. I met my husband in grad school in 2011. I was studying to become an occupational therapist and he was studying to become a physical therapist. So that's what we are today. And in school, of course, we studied together, even cried together, laughed together, and we made it through grad school. We got engaged in 2015 and got married in 2017. I am so fortunate to have him because we are both literally on the same page about how we want to live our lives and what we really value. We really value freedom and travel and mobility, and we value spending our time and money on experiences more so than things. So I'm really happy about that. It means a lot to us to travel and explore the world. So I became an occupational therapist because I always wanted to do something in the healthcare field since I was little, but I also had other passions like dance. So when I was an undergrad, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for becoming a professional dancer. Until halfway through my training, I just physically and mentally burnt out. I broke several tiny bones in my feet because I was overtraining. I got stress fractures from overtraining. And mentally, I just couldn't keep up anymore. I was burnt out. And I knew I probably wasn't going to make it as a professional dancer. And I decided that going back to healthcare and making that choice was a really smart decision for me at the time. And so I decided to pursue a graduate degree in occupational therapy. When I graduated from OT school, after I got my bachelor's, this was a master's program. I graduated it was a 2.5-year program. I went through some pretty serious moments in my internships where I thought I wasn't going to make it. They were really hard internships. And the anxiety, I was diagnosed with anxiety actually when I was 17, which had never really gone away. It came and went in waves. But my anxiety peaked definitely towards the end of grad school, all the way through my first real job in the real world. And the way my body was processing all this stress and anxiety was by throwing up. And so my eating disorder was in my undergrad career, but when I got to grad school and it was already gone. It was a thing of the past. And now in the real world, my eating disorder was so long gone, but I was throwing up because it was my body's reaction to stress, to the fight or flight that my brain, all the chemicals, the hormones, everything that was going on in my body. I think it was my body's way of coping, and it was not a good way of coping. It was an embarrassing thing. I remember running to the bathroom, having to throw up and not knowing why for so long. But I connected 2 and 2 together. I was having the fight or flight symptoms. My chest was tight, my breath, I had shortness of breath, my mind was racing, and it always happened when I was really stressed and my body threw up and I hated it. And that was such a maladaptive way of coping. And now, thankfully, my days of throwing up are very far and few between. So just like in dance, how I burnt out in dance, I started to burn out already in my career as an occupational therapist. I was standing in front of the cabinet at work, getting supplies for my patient. And I remember this moment so clearly. It was 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. I was feeling the effects of stress and burnout, and I think my coworker noticed it on my face. She asked me, are you okay? And I just broke down. I was mentally, emotionally, and physically burnt out. I started to think, oh my God, am I cut out for the real world? Am I supposed to be dealing with this stress in this way? I just felt like I was overworked. I had little time for myself, little time for anything. And I felt my health just slipping away at such a young age. And I knew that I just needed to get it together. That experience was a burnout breaking point. More so from a lack of internal resources. Like I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to take care of my mental health. And I figured it out a little bit more along the way, but I had to switch jobs I forgot when exactly this was, but I moved and I had to switch jobs to find a job closer to my new apartment. And in this new job, the stress and burnout was actually mainly coming from external resources. So experiencing both sides of the coin made me realize just how much the two support one another. You can have all the external resources in place and have an amazing supportive team, but if your skills and abilities don't match, if you're not confident, if you're not able to cope and deal with your work and the stress, or on the other hand, if you're dealing with a crazy toxic work environment, if you have little control, if there's injustice in your workplace, then either way, you're dealing with something. You're dealing with something that's contributing to stress and burnout. Here I am in a place of still working as an occupational therapist and educator at the graduate level, which is really cool. And I'm also an entrepreneur, or should I say wellpreneur, in this space to speak to the person who I was a few years ago. I'm here to speak to you if you're starting out early in your career and you're burning out. I'm here to speak to you no matter what line of work, no matter what walk of life you come from, because we all deserve to have a satisfying life. I'm here to speak to employers, businesses, and organizations to really take a look at how we can draw on internal resources, but just as importantly, make the change to create a space of security, productivity, fulfillment, and creativity, fostering that creativity in your workers. I'm here because I understand how burnout can leave you beyond depleted, drained, fatigued, feeling at your lowest, overwhelmed, scatterbrained, anxiety-ridden, and more. I'm here to bring knowledge from the occupational therapy and occupational science world and from other relevant fields to make a huge impact in your life. And because of all of that, I'm here to make a change. I can't do it alone. And that's why I have this podcast, to create a movement, to educate as many people as possible in starting the conversation, getting rid of any stigmas, and taking charge of your stress and burnout. This is going to be one hell of a ride. So let's go at it together, one episode at a time. This episode is brought to you by the Lit Up Life 2018 Guide, a freebie I made to help you plan out your best 2018 ever. I take you step by step on how to prioritize areas of your life a la occupational therapist style, because I help patients reach their goals every single day. So this freebie is a great one for you to get you started on a fresh, clear, and focused path for 2018. And no, it's not too late. You can start planning your best year now. You can find the link in the show notes or go to joyenergytime.com, go to the freebies tab, and it will be right there waiting for you. Thanks for listening. If you want more, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Also, share this episode with your friends, and I would be so grateful. If you feel inspired, leave a review on iTunes with an honest comment and or what you'd like to hear more of so you can help me out on my journey in delivering meaningful content. Thanks, mis amores.